Come on. Guys, it has been amazing. What an incredible Sunday. I don't know if you wouldn't know this, but Sunday was, I think, outside of like a special Sunday like Easter's or something like that. Basically, it was the biggest Sunday I think we've had since 2019. So ever since that, yeah, all that kind of stuff. So it was amazing. It was packed out, so many great things. I love seeing the church worshiping. Obviously, Growth Track has been incredible and the results of it. So well done to everybody. I want to just encourage you as we're growing, like keep it simple and just keep running the same play. If you keep people healthy, if you keep building and bringing people close to God, like this thing keeps moving. So really, really well done on everybody's part. I know you guys are the engine room of this vision, so I appreciate you all and excited. So I wanted to just simple thought for Staffy today, and I guess you would call it somewhere along the lines of how to build a team, how to lead anything, how to get people moving, flourishing. It's like kind of just that little umbrella. And it's really three things that I think if I was to boil it all down to, like simmer it down like a soup that I don't want to have ever again after fasting on liquids, it would be these three pillars. And I think if we do these, things move, okay? So this is kind of the simplicity of what I think it is to lead someone. And I'll give it to you, I'll give you all three and then I'll break them down, okay? So I think it's this simple. I think it's set vision, build connection, and dedicate your time to helping them move. That's it. I think if you do that, everything keeps growing. And this is kind of a builder off of last week's Staffy where I said lead people, not things, right? And I think that sometimes, which I'll do another part to it, which is what do you do with the things in order to better lead people? Because I think if you don't have good environment, sometimes the environment that you create or the way you run a team and the systems or lack thereof becomes the very thing that you fall apart with. And there's good biblical kind of precedence to suggest that these things matter when you consider that in Numbers, there was a whole dedicated tribe just for moving the structure of the tabernacle. So it talks about, you see that God had kind of facilitated different tribes, different families within the Levites to actually do the work of the tabernacle. And some were on the actual, like the elements, the tables and the things of the tabernacle. Others were on that facade of the tabernacle and others were on the structure of the tabernacle. So you see that actually making this move, this thing that is the house of God, it has facets to it. And as you focus on the facets, it houses the move. And so those are the things that that is an element. But for today, we're going to bring it back down to a builder on lead people, not things, okay? And it's just this: set vision, build connection, and dedicate your time to seeing them move, okay? So what does it look like, set vision? I'm going to break it down in three simple categories for you, okay? When you set vision for people, I think it is really important that you understand that vision is really only going to be as clear as you do a good job at painting it. I think that what we do is we say something and we think that that's vision. And what I've done is I've kind of realized after meeting with a few different guys and different age group leaders and people, when I sit with people, a lot of the decisions that they're making and a lot of the things that aren't working for them really just come back to a vision problem. But vision isn't like, hey, how awesome is this big picture? Like, it's more than that. It's what do you see yourself doing? Where do you see yourself going? What are your gifts? Like, can you envision your gifts in maturity? Can you, do you know what you're giving your life for? What does your team look like at its healthiest? Like, these are all elements of vision. And one of the things that we say a lot in the Vision of People Church is that, every single person that comes to Growth Track makes this their home is another pixel in the picture of People Church. And the higher the resolution, the more pixels, the higher the resolution. So think of it from this perspective. Take every moment that you've spoken something as a pixel. And then ask yourself, if you're only saying it one way, you only have one color pixel. So how do you continue to layer vision in such a way that people know what they're running for. So vision is, I think, more than what most leadership forums take the time to explain it to be. It is more than just we're going to be a big church. Vision is, well, what kind of a church will we be under pressure? Vision is, what kind of a church are we when we're tired? Vision is, what kind of church are we in the parking lot? And vision is, are we a Monday church, or do we just do time slots on a Sunday? Vision is, do we care about the new person from the stage, or do we back it up in the foyer and groups and the way we follow up with people? High resolution vision is far more than saying something once with one sentence. Vision is a continual thing you do. Vision leaks. Why? Because I think life drains it out of us. Obstacles drain it out of us. It's competing with our own personal brokenness and insecurities and giants. I think every moment that someone steps on a battlefield, proverbially like the Goliath moment, you know, that shout from Goliath can weaken the knees a little bit and people lose vision. Every time you have a loss is an opportunity to question vision. Like, am I running for this? Should I run for this? Am I made for this? Like, is this what I'm made for? So vision, it's like, how good are you at casting it? And is it something you set and forget? Well, we know that leadership's not set and forget. And last week we spoke on the concept of, well, if you want to get unstuck and you lead people, not things, you do the same things over and over because your job doesn't change. And it's almost like, imagine that what you lead is a fire and you've got to keep that fire going. Well, the truth is you don't look for new ways to keep the fire going. It's the same fuel, the same action done over and over. And I think vision is one of the fuels to leading something that has to be done over and over and over. But let me break it down in a bit more of a practical, where I think a lot of leaders go wrong with it. And I think there's 3 elements I want you to focus on and adapt in your leadership here at church. A vision that I think people often only get maybe 1 out of these 3 elements, okay? And it's this. You need to make sure you're giving big picture vision. You need to make sure that you're giving vision for the year. And then you need to give vision for the quarter. I think a lot of the time we go, hey, you want to be, like, let's say someone is in love with, People College, and Courtney meets with them and they're like, man, Courtney, if I could just do what you do, this would be amazing. And then all of a sudden, like, Courtney's like, cool, we're clear on it then. She said something like, I could see you doing this. And I would love to invest in you to do that. And it just means that you're going to have to run hard and you're going to do this and you're going to complete college and you're going to be there. Courtney's mistake could be that she left that meeting and vision has been set. Whoever she sat with gets it, wants it. They had a moment of clarity and it's big picture. But the truth is that it's not super clear. It's not exactly developed. It's not attached to emotion. It's not personalized to the person. What does that mean to you to run it? Like, how do you think you'd run it? Do you know when you would do that? What does God want you to do with that? Are you sure this is what you want? Let's see. Like, even holding a bit of it and going, let's see what's next and see if this is vision of your life. But there's some elements of just going a bit bigger. Now, what we often do is we go big picture and that's it. We walk away. But what I find is that that's kind of, if I were to talk about the teams that I visit or I've spoken to team leads or people in teams, I find a lot of people are like, yeah, we got some big picture vision, but I don't know what's next. And the problem is that what you've done there is you've almost basically told someone like, hey, go build a multi-million-dollar company, but they don't know what's next. And a lot of people can decide on the big stuff, right? Heaps of people have, if you go through any coffee with anybody, you could probably get big picture vision from them. One day I want to own a coffee shop. One day I want to empower women. One day I want to be a pastor. One day I want to be married with kids. Like, cool, they got big picture vision. But the amount of people that's where it stays because they don't know what to do with it is like, I think the vast majority. So you need to then bring that back, okay? And that's where you go, what's the vision for them this year? Like, as their leader, you've got to be able to go, man, if they're going to get what's feasible, what's What's Holy Spirit inspiring? What do they maybe also agree upon? But what could it be that this year would be the milestone we hit to get them to where they're called to go? You got to give them vision for this year. That's a faith activator. I reckon a lot of Christians that you lead get tired and bored because all we do is big picture vision, and then what we ask for is faithfulness. We go, if you're faithful, that'll happen. Which is cool, but if the Bible says without vision people cast off restraint, well, I think if vision is too distant, you cast off restraint. That's why most people in an endless winter say, I will have a good body for summer, and then they start getting ready for summer way too late. And it's because it just seems so far off. And what that makes us feel is that we've got time. And when you have time, what do? You waste time. And so if we don't know how to get this big vision down for ourselves as leaders and for the people we lead and the teams we lead, all we're doing is setting things that are so lofty, so big, so grand that they don't even seem real. Yeah. But if you could go, hey, I know that's what you're made for. You're going to lead college, and this is what we're going to do this year. Our goal this year is to make you a leader of 12 that knows how to lead and replicate 12 more. That's our goal this year. And for someone else, it might be different. We're going to get you consistent this year. Don't ever be discouraged that the annual goal might be so far off from the big goal. Because what I know is that good wins create big momentum. And sometimes 1 year drilling down into one thing creates another 5 wins of momentum off the back of it. And so I think the greatest thing that you could do for yourself, for the people you lead, and the teams that you have, and I want you to write this down and actually think about it this week. Pretend you're a coach, put the names of the people you lead down, and ask yourself, do they know, do you know, and have you both spoken about it in lots, like in great like depth and to a good degree? Have you spoken about their big picture vision? And then the second one after that is, what's the vision for them this year? Like, what's Carla's vision for this year? Because Carla's faith can be activated if she knows what December's bringing. And her leader can hold her to it. And all of a sudden there can be some like, let's pray through this together. You know what I mean? It's a good calibrator. And the third one is, what's the vision for this quarter? So we've gone into like, okay, a year's pretty obtainable. But now what we have to know is, what's my immediate next step? And I think 3 months is good because we as humans just take a bit of time to grow and change and shift and move. And so 3 months gives people a good opportunity to establish, then to learn, and then to execute. And I think that's how it goes quite often. You know, the first month you're trying to find your feet on something. And then the next month you start to actually learn a bit more. And then on the last month you can actually start executing if the task is not too massive, you know. So I just want to and I'm keeping this real low hanging fruit. And here's why. We've got an influx of people coming through our doors. And honestly, sometimes, like, this is as simple as this. Pray for workers. Pray for workers. Build something and lead something that pleases God. And he'll add to it. But once he adds to it, you've got to know how to steward that fruit. If we're talking harvest time, and we're in a harvest time right now as a church, one of the things that every Jewish person understood in those times, and any kind of agricultural person knew, was that the harvest was already decided for before it was actually even reaped. This portion goes into grain for us. This portion is what we sell. This is going to go back into what we sow, and this is going to be savings. Like, this is kind of how it just was like parted. And I think what we don't often realize is, hey, people coming through the front door, but that means work. Like, when the harvest season is on, that's when people slept less. Because it was like, wow, they're coming in. And I think what we've got to do is go, okay, if this is the time they're coming in, man, as soon as someone comes into my world, if I can establish one simple thing, which is vision for their life, for their year, and for their quarter, and also understand there's some people are so vision poor because they've been so defeated and deflated by life that vision seems like a luxury and like foolishness. So sometimes before you can even get them to vision, you got to spend some time pouring into them And sometimes one of the most powerful things you could do, you don't want to be directive with it, but one of the most amazing things you could do is speak characteristic vision over people. And characteristic vision looks like this. I think that you are a light. I think you have such a warmth, and I could just see you being just changing your workplace. I see you as someone of consistency. Man, I see you as someone that is going to is going to exude joy. I see you being like a pillar, just someone of peace. I see you being someone who just grabs a hold of God and like digs in, and God just takes you places. Man, I could see you being an incredible mother. I could see, they're just characteristic aspects of vision, but man, they'll build someone up. Yeah. Because it's hard to believe that I'll be a leader of 20 when I'm not even good enough to get up in the morning. Right. And when you can speak hope and vision over someone, all of a sudden you pick their head up long enough for them to be able to see down the road at a year. Okay, the third one is build connection. Why? Because vision is great, but people need to know that you're with them if they're ever going to let you speak into them. You also need to know them if you're going to speak into them in such a way that they will hear you. I think we all might speak the same language, but everybody has their own personal language. And when you can learn someone's personal language and how to speak it, you can say things in a second that they'll catch and move, and avoid things that'll stop them from moving because you understand them and how to move them. The way I move, Gio or Maddie or Stephen they're not the same people. So I've got to always get in tune with who they are and learn how to get them to where they're going. I've got to speak their language. So you got to build connection. And this is 3 simple points of how you build the connections you want to build. You want to build connection to you. Get good at doing nothing together. Stop making connection about an appointment. Connection is not always a scheduled time slot. Connection is, I'm going here, you want to come? It's mundane, it's ordinary, but it also brings the guard down. And here's what people's language will always locate them. So if you want to get to know someone, take them out of the rehearsed 20-minute coffee, 40-minute coffee, and do life with them. And now you'll know them. And if you can know them and they can know you, you'll lead them. So you got to get them connected to you. You got to help them connect with God. Teach them how to pray. Take some of the, the angst and the craziness away from it. The most common thing I hear from people is, I don't know how to pray, but the other day I was just talking to him. I'm like, that's prayer. Yeah. I don't know how to pray. Well, but there's the Lord's Prayer. Let me break that down for you. It's actually a format, and it teaches us praise. It teaches us that we should pray in accordance to his will. It asks us to partner with his will more than ours. It then talks about provision, because provision becomes one of the greatest distractors of humanity. And then it talks about forgiveness. And then it talks about not being led into the struggles that we might have. What a great prayer. Those 5 points will teach someone 5 areas and pillars to pray into that will move their life into better places. Help people connect with God. Teach them how to read the Bible in real simple forms. They're not people college yet. So just teach them SOAP. Scripture, observation, application, prayer. Teach them simple mantras, because mantras make things stick. Like, hey, group, we're going to do 10 for 10. Or we're going to do, we're going to do 20, an hour a day in 20-minute slots at different points of the day. We're going to use 1 hour well, 20 minutes of prayer, 20 minutes of Bible reading, and 20 minutes of praise and worship. That's a pretty obtainable thing. And it's going to build them. And then follow up with questions. 2 questions I think every leader should always ask. How are you? And what has God been speaking to you about? If you want to help them connect with God, don't give them answers. Lead them to God and get answers together. Man, I think I should quit this job. What do you think? Let's pray about that. First of all, let's go find some scriptures on it. Second of all, I want you to pray on it and tell me what you're thinking. And then I'll pray and we'll talk about what I'm feeling. And then let's talk about wisdom. Sometimes God is telling us to do something, but now wisdom might be the way we do it. And other times it might be like, man, I'm feeling this. Teach them. If all you do is feed people, they're going to stay babies. So you've got to teach them how to feed and to be fed, not just give them all the things. You can't coddle people, you know what I mean? So lead them to God and then build connection with God. And then the last one is connect them to other believers.
Yeah, that's good.
If you are the hub of your grow group, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think one of the aspects that most leaders struggle with is they don't include people. And, you know, even in the foyer, I do it with new people. I just meet someone and I meet someone else and I'm like, hey, you guys got to meet and talk. There's actually this group of guys at the moment that, you know, one of them came on a Sunday, the other one they met at a growth track, and then they said that someone else connected them and they're friends. I'm like, that's awesome. The amount of times that you can connect someone and put people to people, that's the goal. Because here's the thing, you know, 12 people all connected, all dependent on you is not biblical, not sustainable. I'm not saying it's unbiblical that you're the leader and they're going to come to you, but if all they do is come to you,
Right.
you're not building anything.
Right. Come on.
You know what I mean? And you got to help people connect to people. And this is why it goes deeper than sustainability. It's actually where growth happens.
Yes.
Why? People's fear is to be fully known by more than one person quite often. It's daunting. So they stay in a comfort zone with you. And basically what happens is you then cater to them in such a way that you start to cripple them. Because what happens is they only can get things from you. They can only talk to you. And the problem with that is that they're missing out on the different gifts that God has placed in the house. And sometimes it's like, I think people need to learn how to hear from peers, from leaders, from mentors, and from God. Like they need to learn how to do these things in collaboration. And I think that one thing we have to do is keep helping people connect to people. So when you have a group that actually hangs out with each other, which, how do you do that? Simple. Ask one person at a time to organize and facilitate a hangout, a dinner, or an event, and you back it. Just back it. If you back it, because they probably don't have the cred yet, you back it. So you get them to put the text out, and then like, so Jack, you know, maybe has a new engineer or a new person on the Renée team, he gets them to do a dinner, and then Jack backs it. He's like, hey guys, how awesome is this? We're all going. Yeah. Like all of a sudden what he's doing is he's building credibility for that person. And now that person's growing in their leadership, which we're talking about replication this semester. Replication doesn't happen overnight, and it's not just a decision. Yeah. Right. Replication takes preparation. Yeah. So you got to lead them through the stages that bring a leader, which is one, they got to learn how to gather, help them gather. Yeah. Oh, I've got a shy person. Hey, if you've got someone in 5 months that starts a grow group and can't recruit, it's because they didn't recruit with you. Take them with you. Take them with you in that foyer. We're going to meet some people. I was so shy when I first came to church, and my grow group leader would pull me and be like, hey, we're going to go meet some people. I'm like, oh, God. I'd get nervous. I hated it. But man, this guy Sam would make me meet people. And then by the time it came to actually starting my thing, I had a frame of reference. Doesn't that sound like what Jesus did? Like, let's go pray for these people. Let's go do this miracle and meet these people. By the time Jesus ascended, the disciples had a really good model for what it looked like to go out and do the work. If all you keep doing is doing the work and having people show up to a finished product, you're the only person who knows how to produce it. So you've got to get people in that. If you have people that want to write messages and you're one of the preachers in this house, have them write a message with you. The next day that it's your message prep day, get them to write with you. If you have someone that you want to take over your team, have them do the work with you. Doing life together is one of the greatest things you could do. And one of those things is just like teaching them to just hang with you, but do the elements that connect them to each other. All those things, if you've got a strong connection, kind of network going, you'll find that your people are going to get answers, they're going to get help, they're going to get prayer, they're going to get supported in such a way that will keep them moving. No one stays in a church with only one friend. I mean, even workplaces are trying to figure this thing out more and more and more because they know it costs money to have people leave. And if they can and they've gone with the, we'll offer you lunch, they've gone with the, we'll give you this, that, and the third, and that's not financially sustainable, so everyone pulls back. And what they're realizing is, how do I help them become friends? Because people will often stay in a job. Studies have shown they will stay in a job that is actually either just a little bit less than what they make to, whatever, if they have strong connections and friendships.
Yes.
Why? Because people know that pretty much you spend most of your time at work, and if you don't have friends there, well, if you have friends there, you might not get them at the next place, and people value friendship.
Yeah.
Get people connected to each other, and all of a sudden you've got two powerful things. They know where they're going in their life, they know where they're going in a year, they know what they're doing these next 3 months, and they know who they're going to be doing this with. Right there, you're already ahead of the game with so many of your team leads. And the last one is this: dedicate your time to helping them move. 3 pillars to helping them move is 1, healing. Everybody needs healing somewhere. Everyone. No one's exempt. And the person that seems like they need the least is the person you should probably focus on the most. Not the least from your perspective, that doesn't count, because from your perspective, you're probably seeing a healthy person. I'm talking about the person from their perspective that doesn't need a thing, is typically one of the people that need it most. There's this thing when paramedics show up to a crash site, to a whatever, and basically they've got this thing where they actually don't address the ones that are screaming first, they go for the silent ones. Because if they're actually in a condition to scream, they're probably okay. But when they're silent, they probably need help more than anybody else. Because they're the ones that are knocked out, maybe already internally bleeding, whatever's going, they're the ones they go for. But those that are screaming in agony, they're okay, they're conscious. And I think, I'm not saying to forget the ones that are screaming. But what I'm saying is at least you know that they need to get help, they know they need to get help. But quite often, it's the silent one in the group that we often forget about and think is healthy, but the reality is they need your help. I say that not because I want it to be the sole focus, but I think what we do as leaders is we often forget to check on the people that are quiet, and we wonder why we get turnover in our leadership teams, and it's quite often just because not everybody's forthright with saying I need help. But everybody needs healing. How do you help them heal? I think 1, it starts with a simple conversation. There's a lot of healing that happens there. 2, helping them hear from God. God heals and brings just an incredible resolve, deliverance, redemption, and salve to the soul when they can hear from God themselves. How do they heal? Recommend outside resources. Hey, this book. And a lot of healing, going back to the first thing I said, comes from talking. As people talk, sometimes we just need it out in order to gain perspective, in order for it not to fester, in order to feel like we're not crazy. Like, should I be hurt by this? In order to calibrate. No, you shouldn't be hurt as bad as you are by this. What else might be there? If something is getting a disproportionate response, it's because it's sitting on another wound. When you're getting someone with a disproportionate response, the issue's not the issue. Learn to see that as a leader. Otherwise, you'll address something, think you addressed it, when the reality is there's something else going on. And then I think, outside resources, good books. If you got anyone that's struggling with maybe depression, like a good book that I can recommend from Chris Hodges is Out of the Cave. Talking about, and he's a pastor of a massive church, one of the most flourishing churches in the country, and just talks about his little bout with depression and just some things he studied and learned. He's got the gift of a teacher. I highly recommend it. Guys and girls, I highly recommend Wild at Heart is a good book. Captivating is a good book. I think these books are more centered around like just the self and healing from a God perspective and understanding identity. They're kind of good books. That's just 3 that came off top of my mind, but they're good things. They're good things you could put in front of people. Encourage people to go to a Christian counselor. That is my personal conviction. I want somebody trying to navigate my soul from the understanding that I was made in the image of God. I want someone speaking from biblical conviction. I don't want them speaking from university conviction. I want university tools in the hands and the heart of a believer. That's what I want. If that's happening, that's going to be a really good place. And I think Fallon, X are 2 great people that could probably lead you to really great resources on that. Those are 2 things. Outside help. pastoral care, people that are maybe in our church that is a team that is actually gifted at helping people move through things.
Yes.
That's a great thing. Those things alone will just help someone heal. The next thing is you got to help them find out what's next. People just need a next step, and they just need it to be clear. And when people are in crisis, one of the best things you could do, or when people are growing or people are new, the best thing you can do is just point them to what's next. And what's next is simply, for some people, hey, get connected. For other people, it's this is how we pray. For other people, what's next is, all sorts of things. I mean, it could be a million things, obviously dependent on that quarterly thing, the quarterly vision goal. But yeah, I would always do what's next. And then one of the big things is what's in the way. If you're going to move people, help them understand what's in the way. Hey, inconsistency is the huge elephant in the room for you. That's in the way.
Right.
Man, I feel like I'm made for something, but I just don't get there. That's in the way. Friendships. Can we just talk about friendships according to maturity, not according to confession?
Yes. Good.
We have friendships because we all confess to be Christians. And we think that simple association means that is a good friendship for me or for the people I lead. But sometimes what I've found is probably a better way to do it is friendship according to maturity. Because I had friends that were Christians, right? But there came a point where I was growing and, they didn't. And there were other friends that were like growing ahead of me. And my greatest wins came when I actually moved away from where I lived, moved to closer to my church, and found friends that were ahead of me. And as I found those friends that were ahead of me, we were moving. But the first Christians I met when I went to my young adults ministry were people I related to, and we were at the first stage, which was we all just got saved, we're all partying, and we're figuring this out. The problem was they didn't want to keep figuring it out. So if that's all I've got is people that are still going, I'm a Christian, I love God, well, my growth stops.
Yeah.
Because I got no one to pull me out, pull me up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No one's going to pull vision out of me. No one's going to give me a Bible verse because they don't have it.
Right.
And I think one of the things we've got to ask the people we lead and ask of ourselves is, man, are the people around me actually going to help me move? What's in the way is sometimes a friendship. What's in the way is sometimes a propensity. Like you're shy. You're easily deterred. There's probably some healing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
Man, I've had a lot of losses, and I feel every time I'm about to win in life, something gets taken from me. And now every time you hit a wall, you think it's a repeat of that wound. That might be something that's got to go. It might be a character thing backed up with some healing. Sometimes you do both of those things at the very same time. At the same time as I'm learning to, be more patient, at the same time that I've got to learn that I've got some issues with the way that people perform. Because I got taught that love was given to me according to performance. And now I receive love when I perform and I give love when people perform. Now there's a problem. Two things that can go parallel paths as Maddie does love. So anyway, there's what's in the way, drinking's in the way, clubbing's in the way. Man, you're trying to climb the corporate ladder by yourself and not honoring God. It's in the way. You put everyone else before you. That's in the way. Your church hurt. That's in the way. You're too tasky. That's in the way. Whatever it is, help people know what's in the way of next. And then the last thing is what's got to go. There's always something you got to help someone get rid of.
Yeah.
When you can help people understand what needs to go, I think things really move really quickly. I preached on it Sunday, but it really comes from a lifelong experience of just realizing, man, as soon as I got rid of some things, I hit growth spurts.
Yeah.
And if you want to help yourself or teams, hey, can I just say this as well? With your teams, I thought Nathan Finocchio did this so well. So you got a question and someone asked him, I think I need to move on, but I feel bad for my church. What should I do? He goes, if you were on my team, I would have told you to leave yesterday. Because you do no one any good. If you already think you got to go, you're already hindering the team. You're not bringing any good. All leaders should lead with an open hand. So either God's got you there or he doesn't. You either need to grow and change because it's you, or you're at the wrong church. If it's at the wrong church, go, because you're holding everybody else up. And what I've learned is that you grow by who leaves more than by who stays. Man, sometimes you got a horrible person on team, man, and you're out here trying to love people while they're shooting them in the back. And all of a sudden, you're wondering, why won't this thing grow? I'll tell you why. They're horrible to people. Behind your back. Behind your back, they're tearing this house down while you're trying to build it up. Do you know what I mean? The person that maybe, and sometimes it's not they got to go from the church. Sometimes they just got to go from a team. People can outgrow teams, you know. Like, I had a girl that was in my youth, and she was one of my best leaders for like 4 years running. And then all of a sudden, it took a turn. Kids were like, man, she's mean to me now. She was just not motivated. She took a sidestep to another team and hit another growth spurt. She just took off, and she became an even better leader. And sometimes we've got to help people find teams within the church because you can grow comfortable. I mean, man, I know for a fact that Carla's got to have some sort of an expiry date on that desk, because the girl's got like so much like presence and passion. And I see reports lately of people saying stuff like, man, she's got spiritual eyes. She sees things. She's got leadership eyes. Blake was celebrating her, saying how awesome she is. So someone like that can't sit at that desk forever because someone else needs to sit at that desk. And maybe that desk, hey, I believe you leave that chair in a better place than you found it. And maybe you leave a bit of anointing there. I don't know. And all of a sudden, the next person that sits in Carla's chair is also going to be someone. But what if now Carla is comfortable in that chair and she needs to get as uncomfortable as she was when she first sat in that chair in order to spark growth again? Because if you go to the gym and you do the same weight program all the time, your muscles will fall asleep to it. So you got to shock the body into growth again sometimes. And for all those that say that thing, if it's not broke, don't fix it, that's a lie. Sometimes the thing that if something functioning is your goal, then if it's not broke, don't fix it. But if something growing is your goal, then you need to keep switching it up for growth. And so sometimes what's in the way is that people have grown comfortable in the seat they're in. So if I'll close out by just boiling it down to those three things, it's honestly three simple things. Keep it simple, okay? I know you could ask, why don't people go to group? Or what do I do next? Or I feel like my schedule's big. Just do these three things. Just set vision for people. Build connection with people and community. People love to hang in that. They'll sit around long enough. They'll flourish. They'll love it. They'll grow. They'll feel loved. And last, dedicate your time to helping them move. Help them heal. Help them move things. Help them step. Help them get rid of things. Help them know what's next. And man, you're going to see that your grow group is going to flourish in ways that you never imagined. And by the way, do this. Just run this playback. Because depending where your group is, your team is, it'll take a bit longer. But if you can execute this play from start to finish properly, well, once, it starts a cycle that is hard to stop. Do it well once, and before you know it, it is a self-sustaining momentum that you just got to keep pushing, but it's a great way to build your team. I know it's simple, guys, but I feel like simple things are sometimes needed as we're seeing a lot of move and growth. And I also think, if I'm honest, we're just not excelling at it. So we've got to just get better at it. Any thoughts, questions, anything? We've got 8 minutes. We can take 3 for questions if there are any.
I do have a question. Thank you so much for bringing this. I'm thinking about the lens of grow groups in particular. And so I think the keep it simple is really helpful, and I think I'm definitely going to gravitate towards that. The thing that I would love some insight on is, I just, both therapeutically as a therapist as well as like as a grow group leader, I tend to bring in people that are a bit more resistant, where they're like, I'm here, but I'm not sold yet. And then because of that, some of them were able to get to it quickly. They're like, okay, I'm all in, while others are still in that resistance stage. And so it creates a pretty big gap in the grow groups, which makes it difficult to create full connection, because some of them are like, oh, I'm there, but not everyone else is. And then it makes them feel like deflated, but then I help like move them somewhere else to help them feel more engaged. So I guess, how do you work through such a big gap? Because for me, when I think of the clinical space, I'm thinking of an individual person, so it's easy. I can even if it takes a year for me to get there, that's fine. But in a group setting, it affects multiple people. So how does that work?
Yeah, I got a thought for you on that. And my first thought is for everybody to help all of us carry this, which is this year, you're going to see us, introduce and really nail, this is one of our big goals for the year, is interest groups, topical groups, and our normal grow groups. One of the things that quite often happens is sometimes we try to put someone in a grow group setting, but they're not ready for it because they need a topical group. Topical groups are focused in a specific area of healing that allows someone to then run at the pace of a grow group. And everybody's different and everybody's got different needs, but interest groups is another one of those. There's some interest groups that it would just, right now they need a softball pitch, just hang out with some people. That's what they're ready for, And at the moment, why we shifted it is our group's structure only allows for those that want to sit around a Bible and really dig deep and are going to be comfortable in a lounge room setting. Yeah. And I think it's a journey, and we've got to create groups that facilitate for that. And that's why we're doing those three things. What do I need your help on? I need your help to either suggest interest groups, know people that would be good at running an interest group, and suggest or write or be open to facilitating a topical group for us, okay? So those things would be really, really helpful on your part. Second thing, Fallon, I would say is this. You've got to know the difference between when you're dragging someone along the journey and when you're trying to get them on the journey. And I think that maybe the therapist in you is trying to drag people to their best day. And the problem with that is that you're dragging the people that are running to their best day back from it. And so I think what you've got to be able to do is always build a culture that is unapologetic to the main vision of that group. So if you are going to shift your group to bringing stragglers in, then release the ones that are growing and fight that battle. On that battle though, I think you'd be more suited to a topical group. You'd be more suited to a healing-centric, focused, kind of topical-centric group, because I think that that's probably where they're at. I don't think it's ever healthy to have to be a salesperson and a mother and a proverbial train kind of thing, or a train, proverbial is not the right way to say it, but train, where you're taking everybody on the journey and carrying them to their best day. If that's what you're going to be, basically what you're going to do is this. You have a fire that you have to stoke 24/7, because if you walk away, it'll go out. And the problem with that is that it gives you the perception of growth and the perception of change and the perception of buy-in. But what we must remember is that Jesus was equally okay with people walking away from him at any single moment, and he never sold them to stay. And I think what we often do is we become Christian salespeople, not disciplers. And we've got to be careful not to do that. And I think that's something that has to be worked out, walked out. I will talk to your leader about it, bring some of the nuances. It's okay to have 20%, 30% of your team, maybe 20% would be a nice sweet spot of those people that are not sure yet, but make sure 80% is moving. And then last thing I'll say is there's got to be a minimum milestone that they will meet. Always got to be a minimum. You're at least going to show up and you're going to contribute, or you're going to show up and you're going to start. Because if you're going to have someone and they're just always in the same place, either you're not telling them enough truth, or they don't want to hear it, or they don't want to grow, or you're not trying to help them grow. One of those two things is off, and it's just not a good recipe.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We've got one more. Lucky last. No questions? Oh, Selena. Go for it.
Who?
You. It was you. Selena.
Okay, cool. So I guess So how do you get feedback on refining like these different levels of vision? And how often do you go back to it? And how do you check the delusion in all these these visions? Like, am I delulu on this part? I guess how often and
Yeah.
how deep would you go on that?
Yeah, first of all, I think go visit some grow groups, which I think you have a grow group leader, right? Visit grow groups, find yourself a leader. We'll be out in a sec. Find yourself a leader and basically like be honest and open with what you feel and see and walk it out with them and come under their leadership and trust them, you know? And I think it's not delusional if the vision is outside of your strengths. But I do think it's delusional if maybe it's something like you think you're going to be the next worship leader, but you literally are tone deaf. Like that's probably delusion, you know what I mean? Because it's like you're singing around the beat, you can't sing to the tone, like it's not going to happen. So I would just trust your leader, give them permission to speak freely, and then let time develop you. Some visions you can't confirm straight away. So you shouldn't kill them straight away either. All right, we got to go. Guys, the next person's coming into this room. Love you all.